So if everything is predestined, then what's the point? So I've heard people say this, and very recently, someone very close to me said that, well, everything's predestined, so there's, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do about it. But that is not the truth. That is a misconception of what destiny actually is. And in that misconception, which is actually a dark spell that's been put out there for us, it actually disempowers us. And it makes us believe that we have no accountability for the lives that we lead, that it's all just destined and there's nothing we can do about it. And when we're in that mindset, in that belief system, well, that is the truth. We are at the mercy of external forces. And we are basically giving up our free will, but we don't realize that we're doing that because we have a belief system that tells us, well, this is destiny, so there's nothing I can do about it. And this is a real misunderstanding of what predestined means, because from our higher perspective, so let's zoom out to our soul so we can look down on this from a higher vantage point. When we are planning our lives, there is many different factors that are at play in the lives that we come into. We're coming into heal generational and ancestral karma and wounds. We're coming in to grow and expand and experience certain things for the soul to grow and expand. But ultimately, we're coming into this now reality to wake up to the fact that we are divine beings and that we actually co-create our life with our higher soul selves, with our higher spirit team of guides and helpers. And there are so many timelines that we can move into and experience in this reality. And when we start to wake up and realize that we have consciousness, and consciousness is an intelligent force, and we can start to work with our higher consciousness to move on to these higher destined timelines, then we can start to live a more fulfilling life. Whereas we don't believe we've got that free will choice. So every time we have a destined point, so let's say, for example, that there's a timeline that we're coming in and we're going to experience a certain illness. And we know this when we're planning the life. We know this because we know what family we're coming into. We know what the generational patterns are. We know what energies are around. And we can see that if we remain unaware of our higher power, of our divinity, that we will live a life that is dictated by conditioned programs, by programs that have been put into the collective to keep us repressed and to keep us suffering and in a lack. And when we experience those, the higher self, well, it hopes that at this point it is going to be this experience that makes us go within. It is always the experiences that are difficult when we start to go within and search for a way to move out of that uncomfortable feeling, that suffering. But if we don't do that because we just believe, well, this is destiny and there's nothing I can do, then we're going to stay on that lower timeline. We're going to get to the end of our incarnation and, we're going to feel that. Now, whilst there's no judgment right to the soul, because the soul is eternal and we've got a long time, we've got forever to learn our lessons and to grow and expand, we're going to feel like it was a wasted life to some extent. I did an Akashic Records reading with my mentor and trainer, Valentina Matthias, and we were exploring some things that I've been experiencing, and I'm asking questions about these things that I've been experiencing, and I've been getting this information, this guidance, these downloads, and there was some doubt coming in because of external energies telling me this, telling me that, but I felt that what I was doing was in alignment with my guidance, even though the outside circumstances weren't necessarily favourable at that time. And what she actually confirmed to me was exactly what I knew, that is exactly what I was doing. And actually, if I'd have moved out of that time, instead of doing the work that I knew I needed to do in that period, that I would have got to my end of my incarnation and I'd have felt like it was a failed incarnation, because I would have not done the healing that I came here to do. So whilst there's no judgment at the end of the life, if you get to your end of your life and you realize then that you give up all of your power to external circumstances, and just by that belief going, well, it was destiny, there's nothing I can do about it, then you're going to live your life on your lowest timeline. So there is many different timelines, so many possibilities, and it's up to us when we have those fated moments or destined points with people we meet, with places we go, with opportunities that come our way. It's what we do with it. It's our free will choice that determines what our life looks like, what reality we live. So let's say I'm going to talk about, actually, I know he won't mind me saying this because he's done an interview with me, but I worked with a guy that was suffering from MS, and he had so much depression, all these things were going on, and he'd spent, a year in testing. The doctors basically said, can't do anything for you, it's just going to progressively get worse, there's nothing you can do about it. And he was at a destined point then. He could accept that, because that is the programming that tells us that is so, nothing you can do about it, it's just destiny, it's just happened. Or he could choose, he could use his free will and choose to take accountability for what's going on in his body, and to look at healing in a whole new way. And he chose that. And he moved on to a higher timeline, and he moved out of depression, and he moved out of anxiety, and he moved out of this mindset of feeling like everything was over, life was over, to one where he was full of joy and happiness, where he had a completely higher perspective, where he was becoming well in his mind and his body, and he started to move on a higher timeline. So whilst it is true, right, that sometimes as souls we do come in and there are certain things that we destine for ourselves, a lot of the time we are not on our higher destined timeline if we believe that we are not co-creating this reality with our spirit. So as soon as we start to wake up to that, which is what a lot of these difficult experiences are for, when the body gets ill, it's not because the body is bad or wrong, it's because there are things in the energetic system that are out of balance that need to be changed in order for the body, the body's actually trying to get well by bringing your attention to it. It's breaking down because it can no longer continue with the actions that someone is taken, and it's not because they are bad or because they are wrong. And I'm not going to go into that in this video because there's so many things that are involved in that. The soul doesn't do that to punish us. The soul does that to help us to awaken and start to heal that karmic trauma, those generational wounds, those ancestral patterns, and to wake up from the false lies and beliefs that have been programmed into our mind to make us believe we have got no power, when it's the exact opposite of that. We hold so much power. We are these divine spiritual beings having a human experience. Until we wake up to the fact that we are this and start to work in co-creation with our higher power, then we're going to stay on a fated timeline. I call that a fated timeline. Your lower timeline, I see that as being a fated timeline. Fated in the respect of you're choosing the family that you're coming into, so you're knowing that you're picking up these generational wounds and traumas, but it's not so that the soul does not say I want to stay in the fated timeline. No, the soul wants to move on to its highest destined path, and that happens when we use our free will to make a higher choice for ourselves, to start taking back our power rather than giving it away to external forces. Now, it is true that there are some souls that are coming in and they do have let's say they are planning to die in a certain way for the higher good of the collective or for an experience they wish to have. But the truth is, for most souls, even if that is the case, the quality of your life to that point can be at different degrees depending on how awake you are. So whilst there may be certain things that perhaps you can't change it because it is your highest destiny. For example, I'm going to talk about the fires in LA recently. There have been souls there that would have known that coming into that life, they were going to be in those locations when that happened, and that it was a high possibility, and that is probably why they chose that they would die in those fires. And they chose to do it to experience it for growth and expansion, but also to help humanity awaken at this time in our history, because it is through these events, unfortunately, it's through these events that we start to ask questions and we start to wake up to things that are happening. But up to that point, there's so many different possibilities for your life. But for most people, they don't have that planned at the end. But even if they do, like I say, it doesn't mean that everything is predestined, how you experience your life. No, destiny is a choice. It's a free will choice, and there are many paths to destiny. So I really want to bring this video out because I can't remember if I said it now, but because someone said to me recently, someone close to me, well, it's all predestined anyway, so what can I do? But that's not the truth. That's not how destiny works. It is a free will choice, and if we are asleep to our higher power and to the divine, then we're going to live a fated life, rather than living on our highest timeline, rather than living a life of joy and fulfillment up to the point of when we have chosen to leave this earth or not leave this earth. And we leave this earth at that point because we are satisfied that we've done what we came here to do. So destiny does not mean that your life is set in stone unless you are asleep, because then your life is set in stone because it's predetermined by external factors. So you are just going to be thrown around in the storms that inevitably come in for us, and they come in for us to awaken and to start to make new choices for ourselves. So you are so much more powerful than we have been taught, and it is at this now moment that we are starting to wake up to that. And as we start to wake up to that, then we have free will, because without that we don't really have free will. Our free will has been manipulated to keep us down. So whatever anyone's going through at this now point, you are not powerless to change your circumstances. There are steps, higher perspectives, higher steps that you can take to improve the quality and the enjoyment and the fulfillment of your life.